Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting us to share here. I'm going to change a gear a little bit. I guess I'm going to share less about technology, more about the business trend that we have observed by serving about 2 million people from over 200 plus countries. So I guess we're a little bit more than AT&T from that perspective. But anyhow, that's my sharing today. So the topic of my sharing is how to win the second half of the internet, which is a buzzword right now you can hear in China, 互联网的下半场. What does it mean? And what does it mean for every small businesses and like business service providers to actually capture this new trend, a new rule of the game, to actually make the most out of it? So that's the core of the topic. And I've give the basically the conclusion here already, which is basically it's a war on word of mouth. A little bit about ourselves. So our English product is called Strikingly. As Michael mentioned, we're one of the most popular website builders in the world. We have already served more than 2 million people from over 200 plus countries. 上线 is our China product. We launched it in 2016, and now we're serving tens of thousands of customers from all over China. And Alibaba is our partner in doing so. So very glad to be here today and sharing some of our learnings. Yeah, as mentioned, this is some of our user site, and we have some renowned businesses using us as well. Google, Uber, Alibaba itself have been our users launching websites and mini programs, which is another buzzword, another trend that we've seen recently. And that's basically what we provide to our users, the most easy way to get online with whatever their business is. So that's enough about us. Next, I'm going to change into our core topic, which is what's really the second half of the internet. You might hear this a lot, like what's the first half, what's the second half? The most important difference is actually just this one thing, right? We're running out of affordable traffic. Meaning, if you're a business today, you're in the first half of the internet, you can actually get a lot of traffic cheaply, right? You can get on Taobao in the early 2000s, and you'll be able to get a lot of customers just because you're on Taobao. You can get on Baidu very early in the days, and you can get a lot of customers just by doing SEO right. But what about now? Every single platform has been overcrowded. And you hear this word earlier in 2016, I believe, that we started talking about the second half of the internet. Basically, it's, in Chinese, we say that we're running out of 流量红利. 流量红利消失了, meaning there's no affordable traffic anymore. And what changed? It changes on all fronts. From the consumer side, we have this another buzzword that you have heard, which is 消费升级, which we call consumerism 2.0. So the consumers has upgraded their own purchasing behavior. Also from the seller side, I think all of us here felt that, including all of the major companies as well, felt that there's an overcrowded of population of competitions in any particular verticals, no matter which one you're in. Take us, for example. We're a website builder. If you look at any of any even smaller cities in China, we counted in Shijiazhuang, there are about 2,000 website builders alone in Shijiazhuang, website building services. This is how crowded the market is. And I'm sure it's the same thing for whatever business you're operating in. So how do you win in this environment, this new game, right? Like the first half of the internet, you can play the game of like capturing traffic. But what about the second half of the internet, when traffic is so expensive that being a small business, even a major business, you just don't have any advantage or edge in capturing this cheap traffic? Let's look at some of the details of what happened. So when you look at consumerism, people start coming from buying better product. This better doesn't just mean quality. It might mean better because you can actually brag about it in social media better, or you just simply like the person who are backing the product. Like if you have seen any of this kind of a 网红 business these days, this is what happened, right? You'll be waiting in line for 2 hours to buy a cup of milk tea, which I honestly don't understand. But this happens, and also you'll be waiting 1 to 2 hours to buying bakeries. It's not necessarily cheaper, right? You spend about 30 yuan to buy just 1 cup of milk tea. And also, here I tasted, this bakery. It doesn't really feel like, I'm trying just the best thing in the world. But people waiting 2 hours there to buy this. Why, right? Why is that the case? You don't normally see that in the US as much, but you start seeing that in China. We call this internet celebrity companies. They understand one thing, which is that the consumers has changed, right? Like this is fundamentally changed. The business environment has been different from before. First of all, the demographic change, right? Given our 90s, I'm born in 89. Given the younger generation who have been, who right now have the purchasing power, they don't care as much about saving, right? They don't care about as much of like just buying the cheapest thing. They want to actually buy something with some social currency, something they can actually post on their social media, right? You wouldn't post the cheapest like pair of shoes you buy on Taobao. You probably will post one of the very unique brand that your friend told you, and you bought it with a very unique experience that the shopper has given you on social media. This is what's happening right now. And the younger generation, this is an irreversible trend. You can't really go back to how things worked before. This is just how things are going to happen. Like there will be more competition. Younger generation will actually care more about what represents them from what they are buying, and they will care much more about what they post on social media instead of like how much they're spending. That's like making a huge difference. So this is one thing, and this entire trend of like demographic change has been amplified by social media, as I mentioned. Right? You wouldn't just start posting the cheapest thing you buy. You will start posting the most unique experience you have from any of the shoppers. So that's one of the first things. From the consumer side, people stop buying cheapest thing, but they start buying better things, better experience, better quality, something that represents themselves, something that has social currencies. Any of the Apple users probably understand this. Now, if you look at the buyer side, what's happening, I think everyone felt this, the competition is getting so intense that no matter what you sell, you're going to face a tons of competition from all around. If you search a cup, this is what you get. As a normal consumer, which one are you going to pick, right? It's very hard for you to actually choose which one to buy. Even with like, the price is all similar. It's a price war out there. You see a 6 yuan bottle versus a 7 yuan bottle. Which one do you buy? Which one, right? You don't actually make consumer purchasing decisions this way anymore. And for sellers, competing in this environment is almost impossible for you to make a profit. That's what makes traffic become super expensive. If you go on Taobao, Baidu, or whatever, try to buy some traffic, and we're trying right now, the traffic becomes super expensive, even not affordable, because there's just so many competition buying exactly the same keyword, exactly the same vertical. Second thing is that given the competition becoming very intense, labor costs rise. The rise of labor costs means a smaller margin you have. The smaller margin gives you a smaller budget you can spend on purchasing. And with more people who are willing to actually outbet you on however much you're willing to spend on any of the platform, it's just going to be very hard for you to actually make a profit if you try to just rely on a platform to get traffic or rely on a traffic source to make a business. This is what's the case. So what's the implication, right? Like what can business do right now, given this like very harsh business environment, as you can probably say it? One of the conclusions you can directly get is that business cannot rely on any single traffic platform to survive anymore. Whereas before, you might be just a Taobao seller, and you can just use Taobao to get your traffic, and you can just use Taobao to actually make a living. Now you can't. And we've seen this all around. Our users, by serving a lot of the Chinese users, especially the exporting businesses, it's becoming impossible to actually make a profit in any of this single platform. People have to diversify. They have to actually go out and start connecting with their own users. There are many horror stories. I'm not going to go into details, but this is basically what we have seen after serving millions of users. In China, this is a new trend, but if you look at some developed countries like US and Japan, it has already gotten there. Right? Competition getting so intense that relying on traffic source or hoping that you can monopolize the traffic source does not make any sense anymore. So what can you do? The shift of the focus goes back from traffic to customers. So how do you focus on, what can you actually monopolize? What is the traffic source that is solely yours instead of is somebody else's? It's your own customer, right? This is one of the most traditional way of doing businesses, right? You have customers who bought your product. You can serve them really well, and they will come back to buy more. That's a very traditional way of doing business. Just wasn't the way how the first half of the internet operates, simply because the traffic was cheap. So you can actually get a lot of traffic for a very cheap price. But with the traffic being competed out, you can't really actually just rely on any particular platform for traffic anymore. So you have to go back to the very fundamentals, the traditional way of doing business, which is focusing on the returning customers, not just the traffic. In Chinese, we say focus on 专注留存，而不是专注拉新, right? This is one of the learnings we have seen. And you have to actually embrace the trend, which is, as I mentioned, irreversible. You have to actually embrace consumerism 2.0, 消费升级. And this is not just, such a kind of a doomsday for everyone. This is actually an opportunity, right? Before the consumerism 2.0, before people are willing to buy, stuff for more expensive just because they want to make a statement, you have to compete on price. And if everyone compete on price, this is a war that's going to go down to zero profit for everyone. It's a negative loop, right? You compete on price, everyone's competing on price, and then price drop, nobody makes a profit, and then it becomes very negative. But now, people don't compete on price anymore. They compete on providing the most unique experience. With this, you're not competing with anybody with just one single, kind of a comparison, which is price. You're competing on, can you actually serve the user really well? They're willing to come back for more. So consumerism 2.0 is actually a much more positive loop for any business to operate. They can actually provide a unique experience. Not comparing with other people, you're not just selling a commodity, you're actually selling yourself. People believe in you, but they buy who you are instead of just buying a commodity that you create. How do you do that? You have to build a brand and actually provide some unique experience. Like if you're an internet celebrity, you can actually provide an experience of if I'm a consumer, I buy this product, I can actually share on social media and brag about it. That's an experience you wouldn't get if you just buy something that doesn't have a brand on top of it, right? So this is one thing. And second thing is that you have to actually engage with people, right? Instead of seeing people as just a walking wallet who can give you money, you have to actually take care of them, talk to them, engage with them, make them your fans. Instead of just taking them as this is one transaction, I'm done with you, and then goodbye forever, right? And the second thing is that you have to own the entire user experience. By entire user experience, I'm talking about end-to-end control. Steve Jobs is very big on this, end-to-end control. You have to build your own database of users and engage with them. Having an understanding of who they are, where they come from, are they male, are they female, which age group are they, how can you actually tailor your product and your marketing strategy specifically for your most core user base. Who of them will come back for more? Which one of them will just actually stop there and buy once? This is the understanding you need to have for actually keeping the most loyal group of customers. And third, instead of just spending a lot of money on advertising and trying to compete on traffic platform to get new traffic, you can actually spend those energy and resources on bringing the users back, like giving them coupon code, giving them kind of a way to for them to buy more because they are loyal to you. And Starbucks does it very well, right? I think any of the Starbucks Gold Card member understand this. If you buy 10 cups, they'll give you one for free. This is kind of loyalty program. It's a continuous process that you have to build up. This is not just thinking about technology as one of the things you can add to your existing stuff. It's not just Internet Plus or Plus Internet. This is actually fundamentally reinvent how you operate your business with technology and with data in mind. And what Alibaba announced last year is the best way to describe this. This is the era of new retail. What's new retail compared to old retail? When you look at old retail, you don't really actually have that much data about users. You can't really follow up with them anywhere, anytime. You don't really actually, create a very deep bonding with the user experience. You can't really stay connected with them. But in this new era that we can actually employ technology to actually help your business to follow around the users wherever they go, whenever they are, this is a new way of operating business that wasn't possible before. And what's more beautiful about this is that traditionally, when you look at this, only the major companies can do this, right? Only the major companies can actually build up the entire user experience, the entire CRM, the entire customers management system, the whole process of re-engaging with customers. In the past, you have to own the tech team, you have to actually build up an entire operations team just to do this. It's millions of dollars of businesses. And as some of the speakers mentioned before, who are focusing on more of the enterprise solutions, they definitely felt that. And when you talk about new retail, after a year of development, you still see only the most major retail chains, the chain stores, start applying those to their own operation. But with Ali Cloud, with all of these new infrastructures being on the cloud, you can actually do this with small businesses, which is the core user group that we target as internet service providers. So the way to do it, as I mentioned, is first, you have to embrace the most advanced technology, right? And you don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? As traditionally before the cloud age, you have to actually build a team, create all of those technology, do all of them yourselves. Now, if you use any of the cloud service provider, Ali Cloud being the best right now, you can actually get all of those infrastructure, coming along with just paying for the services they have already been doing for many years. This is one thing that's great about the cloud. It's the cheapest way for you to get the best solutions out there. And second thing is that you definitely have to find a very solid technical partner. And the key word here is partner. Right? It's not just a technical vendor. Whereas before, you can probably just get a tech team and outsource the development power to the tech team so that the tech team can do it for you. With this new internet age, with everyone getting on the internet, everyone's operating on the internet, you have to actually learn how to do it. Not just like, oh, okay, I know how to do it, and then you can just simply execute. So the technical partner who you pick need to actually understand what they're doing and then pass on the best practice to you, instead of just being being somebody who can exercise what you tell them to exercise. And some of the best technical partners are here, right? This is basically our sales slide, right? So some of the best technical partners is actually here in Ali Cloud. If you're a developer, you can actually just use Ali Cloud directly, an infrastructure provider that you can use, who you can use some of the best technology they have developed. The best technology they have wrapped around in their product already, whether it's Intel, whether it's all of these other processing tools that they have already built into their DevOps. So this is one thing that you can do if you're a developer. But if you're not developers, like if you're a small business who are trying to get on the cloud, you can choose application providers like us, who can help you build a website or a mini program or the app. Or you can find some of the service providers you can actually see around this, this event to get them to help you set this up. Either way, this entire process becomes possible for the small businesses now that the infrastructure has already been created for the masses. So the individual price dropped to a point that everyone can afford. And with that said, I think the core learning of what is happening right now and what is an irreversible trend is that if you're just thinking about your users as kind of a sales that you can make and then you never actually talk to them ever again, like what you did in the past, or you can just make one sales and then be done with it, that's not going to work anymore. You can't really compete. If you look at any of the Western countries, this is already the case. You have to provide a very unique experience. So if you forget everything I said today, that's okay. Just focus on the users and employ technology in a way that you can actually upgrade your business to operate so that you can actually stay in touch with the user anytime and anywhere through the internet technology. So yeah, those are all of my sharing. And our name is Shang Xian. You're welcome to actually stop by our booth in D3. And thank you very much for Alibaba and for all of the attention. Thank you.